What is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing today? Welcome back here today to another episode of the Just Ballin podcast. And for today's episode, we are going to be predicting every NBA team's 2025 season win total. So I have every team's line that is going to be set for their 2025 season win total, and we're going to be predicting, will they go over that, will they go under that? And it'll be cool to look back on this at the end of the year and see how many I got right and how many I got wrong. We're going to toggle between like back and forth what they had last season, and we're just going to see kind of what I think that they are going to do this year. Do I think that they are going to overperform? Do I think there's a chance they can underperform? And can kind of give a little bit of a breakdown for each team. And I'm excited to do this. I did separate it by divisions so you can see which team in each division has the most projected wins to the least projected wins. And if you guys are following along on YouTube, you guys can let me know in the comments what you think maybe your favorite team's win-loss total could be for next year. Do you think it will be over? Do you think it will be under? And thank you guys to everyone that is listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I do appreciate it. So the team with the most wins next year is going to be the Boston Celtics, the team that won it all last year. So they won 64 games last year. Just a lot of games, that is. Do I think that they can win 58 and a half? 58 and a half is a lot. I don't know. They're a tough team because Kristaps is going to be missing most likely half of the season. Jason Tatum, although he didn't play too much, Derek White and Drew Holiday all played in these Olympics. The Celtics bench is still okay. Like, you brought back Sam Hauser, you brought back Luke Cornett, you brought, Al Horford is coming back, Peyton Pritchard is still there, they drafted Baylor Shireman. It's not the worst bench in the world. And last year, outside of Kristaps Porzingis, the Celtics were relatively healthy throughout the whole season. Like, Jason Tatum played 74 games, Brown played 70, Holiday played 69, Derek White 73. Like, these guys missed 10 games at most, and I feel like they were kind of staggered. Like, it's not like everybody missed time at once. 58 and a half is a lot. Do I think that they get 59 wins, which is basically locking yourself into the one seed in the Eastern Conference? You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if this team ends up going and getting 60 wins again, because their top two guys are not really hitting any age wall yet. Like, Jaylen Brown's going to be 28. Jason Tatum is going to be 26. Like, this team is still relatively young. And then Derek White is 30 years old. Drew Holiday's getting up there. The one thing is, Kristaps' health and how much can they replace him over the course of 82 games. I was going into this thinking that the Celtics were going to be under, but I think I'm going to talk into myself thinking that the Celtics are going to be an over. So my first one, Celtics over 58 and a half, which is pretty much locking them into the one seed in the Eastern Conference once again. So that leaves us to the Knicks, who have the second highest win total in the Atlantic Division. Did I say East? Well, yeah, the Celtics would be one in the East. Knicks 53 and a half. Now, the Knicks last year did play very well. They ended up being the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. The 2024 New York Knicks ended up winning 50 games. So does adding Mikal Bridges, Tyler Kolek, having a healthier team going into the year with Anunoby and Randall, but losing Isaiah Hartenstein, can that add 4 wins for the Knicks? To be honest with you, I don't know. The Knicks like to play in these close games. I feel like there wasn't many blowouts with the Knicks last year in some of their wins. Like, there were blowout wins, but I feel like there's a lot of close games that the Knicks will play in. Maybe that's just recency feel with the Knicks in their playoff games. But their roster really hasn't been injury concerned outside of Anunoby and Mitchell Robinson. Now, those are 2 impactful guys. And the Knicks big man core is going to take a hit. No Hartenstein. You're going to have to rely a lot on Precious Achiuwa, Jericho Sims, maybe Ariel Hukporti, who was a late second rounder this year. I don't know if the Knicks are going to make a trade. I don't think they're going to have too many assets to really make a big buying move at the deadline. But I think Jalen Brunson, who's shown that he can stay healthy over the last 2 years. Josh Hart is going to be an Iron Man for you. Mikal Bridges doesn't miss any time. DiVincenzo stays out there fully healthy as well. But and Randall really hasn't missed a lot of time in his career either. He's played over 70 games 4 out of the last 6 years, basically. And he would have done 5 unless the shortened COVID season. So I think the Knicks are going to be right around 53. I do think that the Knicks have a really good chance of being the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. And last year, they were the 2 seed with 50 wins in the East. So I think the Knicks can still be the 2 seed, but I'm actually going to go under for my New York Knicks, which hurts a little bit because, I'm a Knicks fan. I would like if they would hit the over, but I think they're going to be hovering around that 53. And even if they won 53 games on the dot, it's not a disappointing year. Vegas puts these lines out there and they know everything. So they're probably going to be right around 53 wins, and it may come down to the final week for most of these teams if they're going to hit it. Philadelphia 76ers, I'm definitely going under with this one. I do not think that the 76ers, who have it at a 52.5 win totals. So that means, do I think that they're going to win under 52 games? I do. And that's fine with them. This is a team that just needs to get into the playoffs fully healthy. They just can't afford to like risk the regular season at all, especially with Joel Embiid's health. Last year they won 47 games, but that is a really good record for Joel Embiid, who only played in 39 games. Like, Joel Embiid missed 43 games last year, and they still won 47 out of them. And this is still a good team, and you have Paul George, like Maxey is going to be out there, and like Paul George was relatively healthy last year as well. And this team should be better next year, like adding Paul George, bring back Oubre, Kyle Lowry, and some of these other guys around them. And they added Caleb Martin, Jared McCain. I just don't think they're a super deep roster. And if Paul George goes down or Embiid, the other two could probably hold the load of that team and keep them afloat. I just don't think the Sixers are going to win in the high 50s. Like, you kind of go back to the Sixers. I mean, if you look back at the 23 season, they won 54 games. So could they do that? Yeah, last year was kind of a down year in the East. Only one team had more than, with the Celtics, only one team had more than 51 wins, which is kind of weird, yeah. But I think that's how it could be this year. Like, these teams are going to beat up on each other, and like, we'll get to some Western teams. It's going to be tough, but I think the Sixers can eclipse 50 games, and I think they would hit 50. I just don't think they get 53 or more. Toronto at 30.5. All right, now Toronto is a team that I sneakily think could be one of the worst teams in the NBA next year. I don't think they're going to be worse than the Nets. They're not going to be worse than the Wizards. This team won 25 games last year. And yes, they made a big trade, moving on from Siakam, moving on from Anunoby. I don't know if they added enough this offseason, even though I think Emmanuel Quickley will be better next year. Scotty Barnes, I think, is going to stay around the same of what he was last year. I think RJ Barrett's going to be better. I just wonder if the pieces around them, like Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, Bruce Brown, and kind of those guys, even Kelly Olynyk, like, will this team, Jakob Poeltl, get to 31 wins? I think that the Raptors are a sneaky under team next year. I think an injury or two happens, this team is going to feel it, and I don't know if they're going to have the depth. They may be sellers at the deadline. I think when you take into account these win totals, I like to think that buyouts can happen, trades can happen, and they're going to be somewhat of a seller at that deadline point as well. Like, there's a chance Kelly Olynyk's traded. There's a chance Bruce Brown is either bought out or traded this year, and they could feel the loss of those guys as well. So I'm actually going to go under with the Toronto Raptors, and they're kind of a sneaky team for me, and I know Raptors fans may be upset with that, but you're looking more into the year of 2026 rather than next year, and you probably want to be bad next year, because imagine you can add a top prospect from this recent draft class, or in the 2025 draft class, to your team. So that leaves us with the Nets at 19.5. Oh my God, the Nets are going to be, they're going to be the worst team in the NBA. They're really bad, man. This team's, like, you're looking at this team's roster, whose best talent is Cam Johnson, Nick Claxton, Cam Thomas. They're just going to be a seller at the deadline. So I'm making this prediction that there's, like, if some team is throwing you a nice package for Day'Ron Sharpe, he's off this team. I don't think they moved Cam Thomas, but there's really good chances, like Bojan Bogdanovic is bought out, Ben Simmons is bought out, Dorian Finney-Smith is off this team, Cam Johnson's off this team, Dennis Schroeder's off this team, and we actually may see some of the worst lineups in the NBA come March time. The Nets last year in the 2024 season won 32 games, so do I think they lose... Jeez, do I think they lose 13 more games? That's a big drop-off, and they traded away Mikal Bridges, but I do think they go under. I know 19.5 is very little, but this team is terrible on paper, and I think they're going to sell off most of their team at the deadline. I'm really excited to see, like, Jordy Fernandez with this team, but, like, last year, the Pistons won 14 games, Wizards won 15. I think those teams are kind of better than the Nets roster right now, and that's where I think the Nets are going to end up. Even like the Trailblazers, 21 games, and they were a lot better on paper last year than the Nets are going to be this year. And like I said, I think they're going to be a big seller at the deadline. So I do think that basically every team in the Atlantic Division outside of the Boston Celtics will go under. So let's go to the Western Conference. 56.5 wins for our first Western Conference division, the Northwest Division, which is between Thunder, Wolves, Nuggets, Jazz, and Blazers. So we'll start off with the Oklahoma City Thunder, who ended up getting the 1 seed in the Western Conference last year, and they made notable moves this offseason. They added Alex Caruso in a trade with Josh Giddey, who could not play well for them in the playoffs, but obviously this is more for regular season, but Caruso is going to help them out even more on the defensive side of the floor. You added Isaiah Hartenstein, who was one of the better defensive centers last year. I would say was a top 10 defensive center last year. And they won 57 games. So they just, their win total actually dropped by a game, 56.5. It's just because the West is a juggernaut, and they're going to have to play the Nuggets and Timberwolves a ton, who also have an over 50 win total. I think the Thunder go over. I think they have the best chance at getting 60 wins in the regular season, even more than the Boston Celtics. Do I think that they're better than the Celtics? I don't know yet. I think I would like to think so. On paper, this team is insanely talented, has a ton of depth, but we'll see how they can all coexist this year. Will we see a year 2 breakout from Chet, a year 3 breakout from J-Dub? How will those rookies of maybe Dylan Jones or Topic make an impact? Can they actually go with Hardenstein and Chet Holmgren on the floor at the same time? That will kind of be determined. So yeah, I'm gonna go Thunder, 56.5. I do think they hit their over. And then we have the Minnesota Timberwolves. That is the second highest win total in the Northwest Division at 52.5. Last year, this team won 56 games, and this team is kind of running it back, and I loved what they did in the offseason with drafting Rob Dillingham, getting him with the 8th overall pick, trading up for that, and Terrence Shannon Jr. I think will definitely help them out. I really like this team next year, and I think they're still going to be one of the better defensive teams in the league. Cat, Gobert still there, one of the best 6 men who just won the award of 6 men of the year last year in Naz Reid. Anthony Edwards is a superstar. Great defenders on this team like Jaden McDaniels, Nickel Alexander-Walker. They added Joe Ingles, and I really like some other guys that can maybe step up for them this year. I think the Minnesota Timberwolves go over, and I think they hit 52.5. They can even try to be somewhat of a buyer at the deadline. They're not going to have the most flexibility in the world, but I think they go over. Denver at 51.5. Denver, man, they were the team that I thought was going to repeat as champions last year. It's very tough to do. 57-25, but the Nuggets, I think, got worse this offseason. De'Ron Holmes, their first-round pick, out for the year. Unfortunately, suffered that Achilles injury in the summer league. Lost KCP. He's a member of the Orlando Magic. They traded for Russell Westbrook this offseason. And I'm just kind of looking at this team. While I do think Julian Strawther can be due for a big year that can try to replace KCP in the aggregate. Not really going to happen, but you have Brown, Watson, Strawther. One of these guys can maybe take a step, but I don't think it's going to be enough for this team to hit their 51.5 win total. I think they go under. I think they'll be around 50 wins, but I don't think that they are going to be as good as they were last year, obviously. Last year, they got 57 wins. So, yeah, I do think that they're going to lose 7 wins maybe this year. If one Jokic injury, which Jokic has been, I want to say, relatively healthy over the last couple of years, will Jamal Murray, who did not look good in the Olympics, step up for them like Jokic? 72 games in 21, which was the whole season. 74, 69, 79. Jokic has been relatively healthy out there, actually, for throughout his whole career. But MPJ hasn't. I mean, we'll see with Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray. These teams can definitely hit some injuries this year. And that's kind of what you have to project. They could be somewhat of buyers, but it's not like they have a ton of draft picks out there as well. So I do think the Nuggets are going to be under. And maybe they're okay with that. Maybe they're just we want to be fully healthy for the playoffs, but they're definitely going to feel the loss of KCP. So next up, we have the Utah Jazz, who have the 4th highest win total projection in the Northwest Division. They are at 29.5 wins. Last year, they won 31 games, and they re-signed Lauri Markkanen, and they did it at a point where he can't be traded at all this year. So I do think that the Jazz, 29.5, this just shows how good the Western Conference is. That is a tough win total for them, because I like their young guys, but it's just they're relying a lot on these young guys. And does Jordan Clarkson get traded this year? Does Walker Kessler get traded? Does Colin Sexton get traded? I kind of want to say under for the Jazz. I kind of want to go under for Utah, 29.5. The West is tough, but 31 games last year. I mean, they 37 2 years ago? I mean, Will Hardy's kind of overachieved with this team. I'm going to go over. They kept Lauri Markkanen. Honestly, I'm not going to say they would be buyers at the deadline, but if there's somebody that's on the trade block that maybe has another year of control into the 26th season, they might try to get a head start on the offseason. Kind of like what the Heat did last year with Rozier. Something like that. They can really kind of try to gel this team for half a year this year. They're not going to make the playoffs, but then just really kind of try to get back into the playoffs for the first time since that 22 season in 2026. So I think the Jazz will go over at 29.5. Portland Trailblazers 21.5, which seems so low for this team that has so much talent on it to be the worst projected team in the Western Conference. They won 21 games last year. They drafted Donovan Clingan. They traded for Denny Avdija. They gave up Malcolm Brogdon in that deal as well. But man, you got Jeremy Grant, who could get traded. You have DeAndre Ayton. Robert Williams is going to be healthy this year. Like I said, you drafted Donovan Clingan. You would assume Scoot's going to be better. You assume Shaedon Sharpe's going to be better. Could there be an Anthony Simons trade? That seems like it would happen next offseason, not this regular season. I think they get over 21.5 wins. I think the Blazers get over 21.5 next year, and I've kind of flip-flopped the Atlantic in the Northwest divisions. But I think the Blazers, like, they got to be better next year. Their young guys, I think, are going to be better. I think Chauncey Billups will do a better job coaching this team, I would hope, in his third year there. Right? Like, this is Billups' third year. This is going to be his fourth year. Damn. 21 wins, yeah, I think they should be better unless they completely blow it up. But obviously injuries could happen. And even if they're sellers, it's going to be hard to move Jeremy Grant's contract at the deadline. It's a massive deal. So I think him and Aiden, it's going to be tougher to move them than we think. So on to the Central Division, where we have the Bucks, the Pacers, the Cavs, the Bulls, and the Pistons. This is a tough one as well. So the Bucks are at 50.5 wins. I think the Bucks, like, we're kind of disrespecting them a little bit. They didn't have the worst offseason in the world. They didn't have, like, I think, an elite offseason. I don't know how much A.J. Johnson and Tyler Smith will contribute to this team next year. But Damian Lillard is going to have a full offseason of training. And that's been reported this offseason that he didn't really have that 2 offseasons ago because he was scared to get injured and a trade would fall through because he ended up getting traded in September, late September, going into last year's season. Last year, they won 49 games with 3 head coaches. Adrian Griffin went 30-13. That's crazy. They fired their coach 30-13. Joe Pruney 2-1. But Doc Rivers is a big thing. 17-19. This team was not much like better under Doc Rivers. Giannis hasn't really been banged up too much in the regular season. He's had his fair share of injuries, but it's not like he's missed a crazy amount of time. And Damian Lillard, I think, will be out there consistently enough. And I don't know, this team is relatively old going into next year's season, but I like the addition, obviously, of Gary Trent, Taurean Prince. Solid pickups. We'll see if they buy into the young core at all. I do think the Bucks can go over, but I think they're probably going to be right around 49 wins from last year, but they could just be like around the 5 seed. This is an older team, but Giannis, I still think, is the second best player in the NBA. Do I like the Bucks to go over? The Bucks one was a tough one when I was like reviewing this. I was always going back and forth on the Bucks. All right, I'm going to go over on the Bucks. I think they could be right up there with the Knicks for the 2 seed in the East. And I think like the Sixers aren't going to like mail in the regular season, but they're going to be okay going under their win total as long as they're healthy for the playoffs. Pacers 47.5. Oh my god, man. The Pacers are a really talented team to be like this low as like a projected 6 seed in the East. 47 wins last year. Do I think they win more this year? And they basically got Siakam in January too. Like, what was that? It was late January. So like having just, I don't know, Siakam for a full year. I think Demard's going to be better. You have Halliburton hopefully going to be fully healthy next year. This is a deep team that can withstand injuries. I think the Pacers go over 47.5. I think we're going to see the Eastern Conference be better this year with these teams specifically. Yeah, I'm going to go over on the Indiana Pacers. This team can withstand injuries. I think they're good enough in the regular season. Their defense should be better over an 82 sample, so I'm going to say they're going to go over. The Cavs, oh man, I like what the Cavs did this offseason. Like this team, like these 2 teams, and then we'll probably get like obviously the Orlando Magic, I think are going to be very close to each other right outside of the top tiers, but these could be just really good regular season teams. Last year the Cavs went 48-34. They didn't really add too much, and this was without Garland and Mobley throughout some stretches as well. I just think the East is going to be better. Like if we go last year, like I said, in the East only one team had more than 51 wins. If we go to the 2023 season in the East, there was 4 teams with 51 or more wins. Do I think we could see that? I think so. But like, yeah, I think the Knicks, Sixers, Bucks, Pacers, Cavs are going to be very close together. I'm going to go, I think I want to go, I think the Cavs going to be right around 46, 48. I'm going to opt for under on the, I don't know. I think I'm going to opt for under on the Cavs. I'm going to go under on the Cavs. I think the Pacers do have like the depth and at least not maybe the top end talent. Like Donovan Mitchell, I still think is the best player out of any of those 2 teams. But I just think the Pacers are a better team on paper going to next year. The Bulls, 27.5. This is a tough one because the Bulls are not, like, I think are better on paper than 27.5 wins. Like, yes, they lost to DeRozan and Caruso this offseason, but Giddey should make them better. They're going to get immediate impact out of Buzelis. They won 39 games. That was a 12-game drop-off from last year. But the thing is, who's going to be on this roster after the deadline? Like, you assume Patrick Williams will be. They moved Zach LaVine. This team is probably done with that. But I still like their roster of White. I don't think anybody's taken Vucevic. Vucevic. I combined him and Tristan. His last name's there. I like Jalen Smith a ton. Ira Dosunmu, Josh Giddey. I don't know if Lonzo will be back. I think the Bulls go over. I still think the Bulls finish around like 31 wins this year. I think that was a pretty over for me. Like a pretty easy over. So I'm going to go over on the Bulls. And then the Pistons, 25.5. I want to go over on the Pistons. I mean, they won, 15 games last year? Do I think they go around like 24 wins this year? Probably. They won 14 last year. But they added Tobias Harris, Ron Holland, Malik Beasley. They added one more guy that I'm forgetting. Tim Hardaway Jr. this offseason, which I don't know if it's like an ad. But they went 14-68. Cade should be better. I hope Ivy's better. They have a new head coach in JB Bickerstaff. But I think they fall just short because I think they could also be a seller at the deadline as well. I mean, they're not moving Tobias Harris's contract, but maybe a team will take on Malik Beasley. Maybe they can get a really good offer for Isaiah Stewart. But I think they'll finish over 20 wins this year, which I guess is a step in the right direction for the Pistons going forward. So, yeah, we'll get into some other divisions now. On to the Dallas Mavericks here. 49.5 wins going into the 2025 season, right off of their NBA Finals appearance last year. The 2024 Mavericks won 50 games. So they're actually projecting them to lose one less, but teams are getting better in the Western Conference. It is a loaded conference. Like, you have 4 out of the 5 teams in the Southwest Division projected above 40 wins, and you have all 5 teams in the Pacific Division projected over 50 wins. 40 wins. That would be kind of insane. So out of the 3 divisions in the Western Conference, only 3 teams are projected under 40 wins going to the year. That is mind-blowing. For the Dallas Mavericks, like, you would think maybe a little bit of a finals hangover, potentially, but Luka, Kyrie, you added Klay Thompson, lost Derrick Jones Jr., added Najee Marshall, you have big man depth between Gafford and Mivell, you have BJ Washington. I like the Quentin Grimes trade for them. I think he could be really good. You might get something out of Maxence Prosper. You brought in Spencer Dinwiddie. You have Exum still. I think this team has the depth. I think Jaden Hardy could be good this year. I think the Mavericks go over in the regular season. I do. I think the Mavericks have the depth. Like, if Luka, who's missed time in the past, I think they'll be fine, though. I think the Mavericks are going to be good. Around 50 wins, though. I don't think the Mavericks are like a 1 seed in the West. I do think the Memphis Grizzlies, now 47.5 may be enticing. Because for the Grizzlies, you really can't look at last year's total. Like, last year, they ended up winning 27 games. 2 years ago, they won 51 games. 3 years ago, 56 games. So this core has proven to win over 50 games before. But I think it's still going to be another, like, getting used to this team once again, and this cohesion and the continuity. You're getting Marcus Smart in the fold. How are they going to look with Zach Edey? I think they'll be a playoff team. I think they'll definitely be around, like, kind of 47 wins. But I'm going to go under for the Grizzlies this year. I think it might take a year again for this team to get gelled together. But then they could be a 50-win team again in 2026. Pelicans at 46.5, man. This is where the Western Conference gets so tough because this Pelicans team last year won 49 games and they added DeJounte Murray, Yves Missi this offseason. Yes, they lost all their big man depth. I don't know what they're doing. There could be an Ingram trade. That's what's kind of confusing here because their centers on paper, Yves Missi, Daniel Tice, Trey Jamison on a 2-way. It's not great whatsoever. You're asking a lot out of Yves Missi in his rookie year. And Zion, I don't think is maybe I don't know if he can really be a stretch 5. Like, he's physical enough, but I don't know if he can really out-rebound some of these, like, taller bigs out there. If you're going up against, like, Şengün and Wemby and Embiid and Jokic and even Giannis and, like, the Bucks, that'd be tough. 45, though. Like, this team is definitely good enough on paper to win 45.5 games. I'm going to go over for the Pelicans. This could be a really good regular season team. I'm not really a big fan of DeJounte Murray in that addition for them. I think he could be a little bit of a ball stopper, a little bit of hero ball, and not as much as an initiator. That could be an upgrade over McCollum. But I think they just have a lot of talent. If Ingram gets traded, and if it's not for like an immediate pieces and it's more future assets, then I would go under. But for now, I'm going to go over. For the Rockets, I'm going to go under, which may be a little surprising because this team won 41 games last year, and their young core can get better, but they didn't really add too much this offseason. While they did add, let me say, Reed Shepherd, love that pickup for them. I don't know what minutes he's finding. They saw a 19-win jump from last year, or 23 to 24, which is a great job to Ime Udoka. I think they're going to be right around 41 wins again. I do. Could they move Dylan Brooks at one point this year? Yes. Could they move Fred VanVleet? Probably not because of the contract, but you still have a lot of young pieces. Jalen Green, like, you might have to figure out what his place is long-term. Will he break out? What is Şengün going to look like? I like the addition of Steven Adams. I think they're going to be right around 41 wins that they were last year. And then this is going to be another, like, it's going to be a big offseason for the Rockets next year. But like I said, the West is very talented. Spurs at 36.5. I'm also going under on this one. I don't feel great about the Spurs winning 36.5 games, which is, 15 more? Well, they would have to win 37 games, so that's 15 more than last year. They added Chris Paul this offseason and Stephon Castle. I don't think that's going to result in 15 wins. They're projecting, obviously, the breakout for Wemby to being probably a top 10 player in the NBA. And then you hope semi-breakouts from Jeremy Sohan and Devin Vassell again. I just don't think that this team in the Western Conference is going to win 36.5 games. This actually might be one of my more confident unders, I would say. I think we're still another year away from this team being a playoff team. I could see them getting 10 more wins, around 32 next year, and then I could see them being a fringe playoff team maybe in the following year. I just don't think they're going to hit 37 wins next year. Suns at 47.5. it's a tough one for the Suns. They had a good offseason, man. You added Ryan Dunn. You added Oso Ighodaro. NBA-ready guys on the defensive end of the floor. You won 49 games last year. KD's going to be a year older, but Beal's going to hopefully be healthier this year. Like I said, 49 wins last year. I mean, I don't love their center depth with Nurkic, and they didn't really have too much this offseason outside of Mason Plumlee, but they got Tyus Jones for basically nothing, Monty Morris for basically nothing, brought back Royce O'Neal. They obviously signed Grayson Allen. I kind of like the Suns to go over 47.5, but I think like they're going to be right around the Pelicans this year at 46. I'm basically just picking them in like a 1-win window. Like, there's such a good chance they're going to finish between like 46 and 48 wins, and that's just Vegas for you. I think for the Suns, the Suns are a tough one. I wish I had like a Suns fan here, but I mean, they would probably talk to me about the over. I want to go over. I mean, they have a new head coach too, in Mike Budenholzer. I'm going to go over for the Suns. I think they'll be good this year in the regular season. They should be better than they were last year. So we're going to go over for the Suns. The most projected wins here in the Pacific Division. Kings at 46.5. Oh, man, I want the Kings to hit the over. I'm a big fan of Kings. 48 wins 2 years ago, 46 games last year. Can they win one more game than they had last year? They added DeMar DeRozan. They added Devin Carter this offseason. They brought back Malik Monk. I think this team can. It's just like injuries are going to derail one of these teams. Like, nobody would have thought the Grizzlies, I don't know if you can look at preseason win total where I'm looking at right now. No, you can only look at preseason odds. But like the Grizzlies, right? They were probably 50-ish wins last year, and they ended up being in the 20s because of all the injuries. One of these Western Conference teams is probably going to be like that this year between maybe it's the Nuggets, the Mavs, the Grizzlies, the Pelicans, the Rockets. Every team in the Pacific Division could have that injury bug or just something you can't predict. So for now, I'm going to go Suns over. I think I'm going to go Kings under. I think they're going to finish right around the same spot as they were last year win-wise, and you just hope that there's enough wins to go around with that you're not a play-in tournament team again. So for the Kings, I think I'm going to go under here. You know what? No. I'm talking myself into the over. I think they go over because I'm kind of looking at the other teams here in the Pacific Division, and I think I'm going to go more unders than overs here for the rest. So for the Lakers at 43.5, I really want to take the under on the Lakers, man. I mean, they added Dalton Connect, Bronny James this offseason. They won 47 games last year, but LeBron, man, how much? He's going to be 40 in December. I mean, Jalen Hood-Schifino should make some impact. Reeves, Hachimura, D'Lo could be traded. I don't know if I love this Lakers team to hit 44 wins. I don't. AD was as healthy as he's ever been. I'm going to go under on the Lakers win total this year. I think it could be right around 43. 43, I think, could be the max, and it's 43.5. So I'm going to go under for the Lakers for this season. Warriors, 43.5 as well for the Warriors. The Warriors last year ended up getting 46 wins. No Klay Thompson, but they added Buddy Hield and Melton. If Draymond doesn't get suspended, I actually think I'm going to go over on the Warriors. I think they'll be better than the Lakers this year. I think you just have Kuminga, Podziemski. I don't know though. Maybe I shouldn't talk myself into 46 wins. You know what? I'm going to go under on the Warriors. Yeah, I'm not talking myself into it. I really like the Warriors team, and they were one of my most enjoyable teams outside of my Knicks to watch last year. And when they're fully healthy and you can watch the two-man game of Draymond and Steph, it's obviously amazing. And then you add in Podziemski into the fold. I like the additions of Melton and Buddy Hield this offseason. They didn't have their draft pick at 14, but I like Kuminga and Trace Jackson Davis and these guys to take kind of jumps this year. And if Draymond's out there, man, they should be okay. But I think they could still be a play-in tournament team around 43 wins. Clippers, I mean, they're one Kawhi injury away, but I don't know. Like, James Harden just might go like Rockets James Harden, go nuclear again. And they won 51 games last year. They won 44 and 23 with no Kawhi? Or no, it was 42 wins in 2022 with no Kawhi. Yeah, I think, oh my God, 40 and a half stuff, because they could just go 41 and 41. You know, I think a lot of people are going to be down on the Clippers, where this is where Vegas makes their money. I'm going to go over on the Clippers, but I think it's going to be like 41 and 41, and then the over cashes, which is funny. So we are going to be going on to our final division here, the Southeast Division. It's probably the weakest division out of all these teams. Magic have the most amount of wins in their projected total at 47.5. They're tough. I went under Cavs, over Pacers. They're also at 47.5. The Magic last year were the 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. They ended up winning 47 games. They brought in KCP. Their young guys should get better. Brought back basically everybody. They drafted Tristan da Silva. I like the Magic to go over. I think they could actually be a sneaky 2 seed. And I think I like their chances at being a 2 seed over like the Pacers or the Cavs this year. Just because I'm a big fan of Paolo going forward. Heat under, easy under 44.5. This team did not get better this offseason. Should they be healthier next year? Yes, you would like to think so, that Jimmy Butler's going to be out there more. Rozier's going to be fully healthy because they didn't really get a great Rozier. They drafted Khalil Ware, who's basically your backup center. Hopefully Hero's healthier for this team. 46 wins last year. I just think the teams around them in the East got better. And those teams including the Orlando Magic, the Pacers, the Cavs, the Knicks, the Bucks should be maybe better. The Sixers got better. I just don't really think they added enough. And while I do think we could see a breakout year from Nikola Jovic, and Jaime Jaquez was great for them, I don't think they hit the over. The Atlanta Hawks at 35.5. They're a weird team. Like, I'm going to do my season preview on them next. And they won 36 games last year, and they moved on from DeJounte Murray. They added Nikola Jurisic and obviously the number one pick, Zach Sachet. Trae Young was banged up last year. I think we could see a jump from Jalen Johnson. I think we could see a jump from Onyeka Okongwu as long as there's ample playing time. I think they're going to be... I think they could be a sneaky over team here. I'm going to go over on the Hawks. I think they could finish around 37 wins this year and actually be one of the respectable, like, fringe playing teams in the Eastern Conference. We have the Charlotte Hornets at 29.5. They're also a sneaky playing tournament team. I don't hate this. Do I think they sell off any of their pieces? They won 21 games last year with basically no LaMelo Ball. And you would like to think they got better this offseason, like adding Salon. LaMelo is going to be healthy. That's really it, I guess. Like, it's a lot of the same guys from last year. Mark Williams was banged up last year. I think they could. This could just be a 28-win season. It really could. But I'm excited about Hornets basketball. So I think I'm gonna go. Over on them. I think I'm gonna go over on 29.5. And then for the Washington Wizards at 20.5. This team should be better, but I'm gonna go under. I mean, this team won 15 games last year. They added Malcolm Brogdon, but I think if Malcolm Brogdon is not traded at the deadline, he will be bought out. They won 15 games. I think Jonas Valanciunas is going to be traded at the deadline, and then you're asking way too much out of these rookies. Kyle Kuzma could be moved off the deadline. Like, Jordan Poole has to be playing better. I think Bilal could take somewhat of a jump, but I think they're going to be under. I think they're going to be around like 19-ish wins this year, 18 wins, and then hopefully you see like a fringe 30-win season in 26, and then maybe some playoff talks in 2027. So, all right, so I have 17 overs and 13 unders, and I don't know like the probability of that happening, but I'd like to assume you have to be around 15 and 15. So I'm going to change 2 of my overs to unders. I have 4 of the Atlantic teams finishing under. Do I think the Thunder? I feel confident about the Thunder and the Celtics. Timberwolves 52.5 I feel confident about. Maybe the Jazz win around 28 games this year. I think they could be more of an under team than I think. Like, they moved Clarkson, they moved Sexton. I got to probably take that into account. So I'm going to change them to an under 29.5. And then I got to change one more. Thought about the Bucks, because the Bucks could just win 49 games. And I kind of like that. So I'm going to go under on the Bucks. And I think maybe it's more likely the Sixers, maybe the Magic or the Pacers and the Knicks end up as the 2 seed. But the Bucks, I think fully healthy, could still make a run in the playoffs. So to recap, in the Atlantic Division, Celtics over 58.5, Knicks under 53.5, 76ers under 52.5, Raptors under 30.5, Nets under 19.5. In the Northwest Division, Thunder over 56.5, T-Wolves over 52.5, Nuggets under 51.5, Jazz under 29.5, and the Trailblazers over 21.5. For the Central Division, Bucks under 50.5, Pacers over 47.5, Cavs under 47.5, Bulls over 27.5, and the Pistons under 25.5. For the Southwest Division, Mavericks over 49.5, Grizzlies under 47.5, Pelicans over 45.5, Rockets under 43.5, and the Spurs under 36.5. In the Pacific Division, you have the Suns over 47. You have the Kings over 46.5. Lakers under 43, Warriors under 43.5, and the Clippers over 40.5. And finally, in the Southeast Division, you have the Magic over 47.5, the Heat under 44.5, Hawks over 35.5. You have the Hornets over 29.5. And I miscalculated one of my coloring, so I actually don't even think I need to change one of these. All right, so I think I actually miscalculated that, so I'm just going to go Bucks over 50.5 because that was the second one I changed. Yeah, I'll go Bucks over 50.5. Why not? So we'll just do that. So that is going to be it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy me predicting every team's win total for the 2025 season. Let me know what you agree with or disagree with down below. I love you guys, and I'll catch y'all in the next episode of this podcast. And yeah, thank you guys to all listening on Apple Pod and Spotify. It really means a lot. I'm with Blue Wire Networks now, which is really exciting to just kind of bring that over to a podcast platform and kind of hopefully bring some exciting stuff here for you guys. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.